And I think I see that the way that I see anything that I work on, whether it's accepting new clients into my practice or hiring on new clinicians, is that I have my vision of what I need it to be. And I'm not compromising what I see as the ideal for me. I'm making sure that those people are a right fit for what I'm bringing into the center.
This is Therapist Clubhouse, a podcast for private practice entrepreneurs. I'm Annie Schusler. This week, I'm talking to Katie May, a private practice entrepreneur in the Philadelphia area. Listen as we bond about how much we both love bringing our creativity to our businesses. You're going to love Katie's openness. Welcome, Katie May. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. I'm jumping right in.
Yay. So I want to ask you all about your entrepreneurial journey. Will you tell us how long you've been in private practice?
Yes. Now I have to do some math in my head. So I started in the counseling field. My first job was in 2011, kind of like a second attempt at a career for me. So private practice, I would say since like 2013 was when I dipped my toes into private practice and then grew things from there.
Cool. And so tell us about your practice a little bit. I know that you're serving teens and their parents. Can you tell us a little bit more about who your typical clients are, or maybe who your best fit clients are?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have celebrating a little bit past the year mark of my teen support center. So I have 7 therapists that work with me, as well as myself. And so we do service just adolescents in our community, which I see as anywhere from like the 12 to 24 range, just based on the adolescent brain. And so our ideal clients, we work with teens with anxiety, depression, self-harm behaviors, low self-esteem, family conflict, school problems, kind of the realm of teenage issues. My favorite kind of teens to work with personally are the ones with suicidal thoughts, the ones with self-harm behaviors. I really like those higher risk teens. And there are several of us at the center who do dialectical behavior therapy, DBT groups, and individual treatment. So we really, because my history is working at a partial hospital program, we have great ties in the community for that high-risk population and tend to see a lot of those kids that a lot of outpatient centers will not see that are like, high risk in and out of hospitals, but we tend to do our best work with.
And so, sometimes we can't really know, but why do you think those are your favorites to work with?
So, it's a complicated answer, but I guess it's not at the same time as I really relate to them. I've shared this before, like I was a troubled teen. I had my own journey to go through, and I really feel like having those kinds of teens who feel like nobody understands them, they don't have a place where they feel heard or where they don't feel judged or validated, having a place where they can come in and take off the mask and feel like somebody gets them, connects with them, really hears them. I feel like it's, saving my little piece of the world by doing that. So it's just something that connects me to my purpose.
Awesome. And so you run groups in your center, and you've obviously brought in all these clinicians. Mm-hmm. Which happened first? Did you run groups first, or did you hire clinicians first?
Yeah, no, I launched my whole private practice with a group. So What happened was I was working in partial hospital in a program, and I knew my ultimate goal was to be in private practice for myself. I don't work well for others. I need to be my own boss. So I knew it was the plan all along. And so I just kept hearing over and over again, my job at the partial hospital program was like to be the individual and family therapist, and then to find them continued care when they finished up in the program. And all of these adolescents were saying, I really enjoyed the group aspect of the program here. I wish there was something like that in the community. And there wasn't anything like that at the time. And so me being, the entrepreneur that I see myself as, I was like, well, I'm going to start that group then. And so I started a group. I leveraged all my community connections that I had made. I got 6 teenagers together. And one night, Monday night, 7:30, started a group, and I loved it. Some of those group clients became my individual clients, and that's how I started building my practice. And then it got to the point where that group was kind of getting known in the community, so I was getting more interest, and I started a second group. So I had like 3 groups within my first year of private practice.
Cool. And then you started hiring more and more clinicians pretty quickly?
No. Well, okay. I guess quickly is relative, right? Yeah. So I was in practice for myself for I can't do math really well. I can't count, but at least 2 years by myself where I was up to running 7 groups and having a full caseload of clients. I was seeing like 18 clients in 7 groups per week.
Whoa. I'm just doing the math on that. That's a lot.
It's a lot.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it got to the point where I built my practice and I was still working my day job, and I was like, something's got to give. Yeah. So I took that leap into private practice, and it just kept growing and growing. You know, I found my place in the community. I found my place in all of the online marketing things that I'm doing. And so I was really like kind of exploding into the market. And it got to the point where I was getting so many referrals that I couldn't accommodate. I was just thinking, I need to scale this. You know, there were several reasons why I felt that was the next step, but I felt that I kept giving these clients to other people in the community, but I wasn't sure were an exact match to support them, just given what I knew and how I wanted them to be supported, if that makes sense.
It totally makes sense. And I think in particular, I think this could be true for a lot of therapists, but I think in particular with DBT, it makes so much sense to want to collaborate with people who you really know, because collaboration is built right into your model.
Exactly. Yeah, it's so important. And it was important to me that these teens be treated within a model that knew how to best support them, rather than to hear that first safety concern, push the panic button and send them back to the hospital. Because my goal is always to keep kids out of the hospital if we can maintain their safety at home.
Yeah. So how did you find people? How did you find your clinicians?
The first 2 clinicians that I hired came from the program where I used to work, and they didn't work there. One of them actually took my job when I left there, and one of them was hired after that. And so I knew them from going to, you know, I visited the program after I left it. I went to a couple of their holiday parties. So I was just kind of connected in that office still. So I knew them a little bit, but I also knew that they'd be skilled enough to be able to handle the kinds of clients that I was attracting into my office and into my center, because they were familiar with the whole, you know, the way the hospitals work, the criteria that needs to be met, how to manage safety concerns. So it started there, and then one of them knew someone, and then one of them knew someone. So it just kind of like, they were all people that I kind of knew, but I didn't know. And then I found one through Indeed.com, and then she knew someone. So it was just, you know, we grew and it felt natural. And I've been really lucky to have great people that work for me, that really believe in the vision. That was probably my biggest piece of criteria, other than being a skilled clinician, was like believing in the mission and being aligned with the values that I have for how I treat teens.
That's great. I heard this, I don't know who first came up with it, but I heard this quote that I really like, that you want to look for volunteers, not recruits. So like people who really want to be there, people who are really signing up for your project because they want to be there, and that you're not like trying to convince them that this is the right vision. So it sounds like you got clinicians who really are into this vision.
Yeah. And I think I see that the way that I see anything that I work on, whether it's accepting new clients into my practice or hiring on new clinicians, is that I have my vision of what I need it to be. And I'm not compromising what I see as the ideal for me. I'm making sure that those people are a right fit for what I'm bringing into the center.
I love that. I always come up with, I always choose some quotes from interviews that I highlight, and I can already tell that's probably going to be one of them. Awesome. I really love that. I want to return to it. So you were talking right before we hit record, you were telling me about this model where you've got a whole lot of groups, and then over the summer, you bring some of them together and you've got some kind of camp. I've never heard of this. Will you tell me a little bit about it?
So over the school year, we run 10 different groups. That's a mixture of our process groups, our DBT groups, as well as we have a parent group that runs during the school year as well. But over the summer, you know, as we all know, it's a little bit slower. So we collapse those groups into 6 groups so that we don't have a bunch of groups that have like 3 or 4 people in them while people are on vacation. So that's just a model that's worked well for us to collapse them in. But what I've been doing for the past 3 years and has been super successful is I run a summer camp. So the first year I ran the camp, it was literally just me. And I was like running around the different rooms, setting things up, like getting it all together. I was sweating and out of breath and exhausted by the end of the day because it's a week-long camp.
With how many kids?
So 8. We do, just like my groups, I cap them all at 8 for space, and also for, you know, so everyone feels heard, everyone feels like a part of something. So we do our camps with 8 kids as well. And so really what it is, it's a combination of groups throughout the day. I've played around with the length of the camp in terms of The first year we did it 9 to 12. The second year we did it 9 to 12. Everyone wanted a longer camp. Last year we did it 9 to 4, and we were all exhausted at the end of the day. It was just too much. So we're back to 9 to 12. The half day camp seems to work well, but we just do 3 groups per day. And now I have a team, so it's a lot. We're sharing the workload. And we do like an art-based group, we do an activity-based group, and a discussion-based group every single day. So it leans heavily on the DBT model in terms of the skills that are integrated in it, but it really is meant to be fun and a little lighter. Like we're going to make candles, we make sparkly silly putty, we make essential oil sprays, and we just tie in these like crafty activities. We'll do like a nature scavenger hunt for mindfulness. So we just tie in all of these activities into reinforcing some of the skills that these kids learn throughout the year. Or what happens is we'll either get kids that are in our groups throughout the year who want a little boost or more structure over the summer, or most of it is new kids that come in, but they find they get like a condensed version of these skills, and then they filter into an ongoing group during the school year.
So, I mean, this is amazing. And one thing it's making me think is that your program is probably keeping so many kids out of the hospital. Because this is a way to keep them engaged, keep them in treatment, to have them like growing instead of kind of going into more pain. Yeah. So that's one thing. And then my business head is like, this is so interesting and creative. And I'm wondering, because this is, mostly about business. Yeah. When you come up with an idea for a new offer or for some way that you're going to tweak an offer, what is that process usually like for you? Like, do you have light bulb moments? Are you brainstorming by yourself or with other people? Like, what do you think your process is usually like?
So my brain never stops. I mean, it's almost like a gift and a curse. Is like I need to intentionally shut my brain off sometimes because the ideas just keep coming. And like I'll have one idea and then that'll spark another idea. And it's just like a mind map continuously happening for me. Yes. So I have a journal in literally every room of my house. There will be times when I'm with my family and I'll be like, nobody talk. I have to write it down an idea, and I write it down. And so sometimes those ideas go nowhere. Sometimes I write them in a book and then I never look at them again. But oftentimes I have these ideas, and what I'll do is I'll put a little bit of a feeler out there. Like I have a good hook in social media and a responsive community, even, for my parents in the community. So I'll put something out there like, thinking about offering a DBT dinner workshop. Would you be interested? And I'll send it out to my email list, and I'll put it on social media, and I'll see what kind of response it gets. And if it gets some legs under it, then I know to keep going with it. Sometimes it falls flat, but I'm totally fine with that, knowing that maybe it's something that people really need. And if I put it out there, then they're going to hook onto it, and it's going to be great, and it's going to really help people. But if I never say anything and I never take any action, I'm never going to know either way. So does that explain my process a little bit?
Totally. I love it. And one thing I love about it is you're testing really early. Like you get an idea, you test it, and you don't like develop it and turn it into this huge thing before you've given it a chance. I think that's so smart. Yeah. And I feel
because why put all the work into developing something that you don't know if you're going to get paid for it yet?
Yes. Yeah. Can you think of an idea you've had that didn't go anywhere?
Well, one of them was the DBT dinner date one.
Okay.
So I had this idea that I was going to run like a DBT dinner workshop, DBT dinner workshop over holiday break for my college kids and college kids that I didn't know who were coming back over the holiday, just to give them a little taste of some of the skills. But it just didn't really go anywhere, so I let it go. We have a college prep workshop that we run. One of my therapists ran it last year, and she's going to run it this year, and it's already filling this year. But I had intended on running it the year before that on my own, before I even had these employees. And so I put it out there. I had a flyer up. I had put things out on social media. There was a good response to it, and it just didn't fill. And that's okay. There's many factors that could have gone into that. I think one of them was my own, like, I thought it was a good idea, but I wasn't really sure I wanted to do it. And so I was like energetically not filling it, But then like a week after I decided it wasn't going to go anywhere and nobody was signing up, I had one person interested, but it was like the workshop was 2 days away. And I just said like, that I think I actually said this round is full, but I'll let you know about the next one. So it was a little white lie that I told just to kind of like make it go away. But I think it's always okay to have an idea and put it out there and pivot or let it go if it's not working for you. Like, what's the harm, you know?
Yes. Yes. And, you know, research has told us that when we see someone who is a genius and has done like all these incredible things, that person always has hundreds of ideas that didn't work.
Yeah.
So that's just part of it.
Yeah.
That's a good sign if we're doing things that fail.
I actually do that as a whole group with my teams is I have all of these index cards and it's like, how many things did, I don't know, it talks about like Einstein and Oprah and Thomas Edison and all these people and like all of the things that they tried before they got to their thing, or like all of the adversity and obstacles they had to overcome before they got to their thing. And so I love that's such a good reminder that we have to get through all of that to get to our thing.
Yeah. Like Edison did not start with the light bulb. Yeah. That's great. So has there been a low or scary moment in your business?
I'm sure that there has. I can think of two off the top of my head. The first one was just taking that leap into private practice. So I was working at this partial hospital program. I had great benefits through it. My husband did not have, he was not my husband then. We were engaged. He did not have benefits through his job. He was moving home. It was a whole long story. So we made this decision that we would get married on paper before our wedding. We were already engaged just for the benefits part of it. We're practical people. And so that was one decision we had made because of these benefits. But then I had this big idea that I was going to leave my job and open my private practice. And I knew in my head I never doubt myself that things are just going to work no matter what, whether they have to pivot or not, they're going to work. So that was kind of scary, thinking about being the breadwinner for my family, having the insurance for my family. At the time, my son was 5. And so thinking about the responsibility that was on my shoulders and also knowing that I had this dream that I could bring into reality, but not really having the support of my husband in terms of just his own fear getting in the way of that. Like he's a very practical person and just wanting all of those details, whereas I'm more of a dreamer and can make that stuff happen. So that was one big moment that I would say is scary. And then
how did you get yourselves on the same page? Because I think that's a really tough one.
I want to think about how to answer this because I guess the honest answer is I'm sure enough for both of us and I do it and then it works. And it's gotten to the point now we've been married for 7 years where he doesn't, even though his own fears might be there, he'll say, I know you can do it. I don't doubt you. And so then it doesn't matter, you know? So that's kind of where we got to that point. I mean, it was the same thing with getting a dog. I was like, I know this is going to work. I know we want this. And he's like, I don't know if we want this. And like, we're getting a dog. So I just kind of like, I am the decision maker because I can make the decision and be sure of it and move forward. Obviously, if it was something that was, we would talk about bigger decisions if we needed to, but sometimes it's overcoming the fear that I can do easily.
I am so the you in my relationship. That's really fun to hear about. And at this point, my wife thinks of it as a benefit of being with me, but I know there have been times when it didn't seem like such a benefit.
No, I love that you said that because I think we do balance each other out. I mean, I'm, idea action person. And sometimes it's helpful to have a person who could say, hold on, let's not do this today. Maybe give it another few days and think about it. And so in life, I listen to that more than in business. I'm more of, I go off my gut and intuition and I make it work.
That's nice because I think that probably makes us really well suited for being entrepreneurs because if you're your own boss, that's a place where you don't always have to run it by committee, that you can actually just try something and take some risks within kind of your own swimming pool.
I agree with that. And, I came from an entrepreneurial family. My dad is a restaurant owner. My brother is a lawyer. He has his own business. So I had really good role models for just like trusting yourself and taking calculated risks to make things work. And so, I'm grateful that I had that kind of upbringing where I could trust myself and know that I could make something work.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So how are you balancing a couple different things? How are you balancing being a business owner with having a life? And then also, because I think these are so related, how are you balancing being a clinician and being a CEO?
Oh, that's interesting because I don't know if I think of myself as a CEO, but I guess that's...
You are such a CEO.
I guess that's what it is. How do I balance everything? So The truth is that I thrive off of doing all the things. Like, I like being busy. I love my work, all of it. And to some extent, my work is my hobby, which I think probably to other people makes me like a boring person, but to me makes me like, I enjoy it. It energizes me. So I balance my group practice by having support. I have someone who answers the phones. I have someone that does, the filing and admin, and I delegate a lot in those areas. So that's helpful. So I'm able to just come in and see my clients and of course attend to a couple things, but I have a lot of support in those areas, and I'm a believer in delegating if you want to scale. What was the other part of the question?
Yeah. And then I kind of thought this would happen, that you're answering all of it at the same time, because it's also related, but it's like being a CEO, being a clinician, and then like being a person and a business owner. Yeah.
Yeah. And I almost feel like I don't separate them out. And maybe that's unhealthy for some people, but I feel like in a lot of ways, I am my business. I am my brand. I'm very present on social media, talking about the things that I do and kind of using my life as a mirror for how I market and how I put things out there. And, in the clinical world, in a very boundaried way, like I'm talking about my clients more than myself, but it's hard for me to separate them because they are so much a part of me. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't have days where I throw the phone across the room and watch Netflix all day, because I totally do that. I did that yesterday. Or, weeks where I go away with my family. Like I take breaks in time for me that are unrelated to business, but on the day to day, they're just all kind of parts of who I am.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And they all bring you joy.
Yeah.
What do you charge personally and in your center? Do you all have the same fees or different fees?
So everyone has a little bit of a different fee. The starting rate for the therapist at my center the starting rate is $150, and which is pretty standard in the Philadelphia area. So, and then I have one who's at $160, one who's at $175. I, at this point, would not see a client for under $200, but I'm not taking on new clients right now. So I have my caseload, which is all somewhere between 175, 200, and then my groups, which is my passion. So I focus more on my groups and my plan, just given that I'm a year into group practice and I still have a pretty full caseload, and I still do, how many groups? I do 6 groups. I'm trying to scale down a little bit so that I can manage more of the balance in my life.
Great.
I feel like having 7 employees is almost like having 7 new clients on my caseload, just because I need to manage all the day-to-day with what they're doing too.
Yeah. Is that something that you could imagine changing at some point? Like how much management you're doing with your employees? Or is that part of it that you want to hold on to?
So, yeah, I mean, it's a yes and no. Ultimately, I'd love to be able to step away from the practice more. I love doing clinical work, so I'm not ready. I'm sure someday I will be ready, but right now I'm not ready to step away completely, because I love seeing clients and I love doing groups. So my goal is to get to 2 days by next year. So I have a bunch of seniors that are graduating out. So I'll be moving from like 4 to 2 days by September, which is pretty exciting for me. And so I think that I have a lot of it covered in terms of phones and filing and admin. But I'd like to have somebody on site who can be more of a supervisor for some of those clinical concerns that come up, safety concerns, things that happen at the center, so that I don't feel like I'm on call when I'm at home having dinner with my family, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Okay. This is probably going to sound like a shallow question, but it isn't. So stick with me. I know you're not going to think it's shallow, but Katie may, but maybe a listener or two will. So you've got purple hair. It's totally gorgeous. And I have wanted purple hair for a while. And I'm thinking now, talking to you, about why I haven't made that choice yet. And I've wondered if people wouldn't take me seriously. And even hearing myself say that, it totally goes against my business values to question that.
Yeah.
But I really believe that when we show more of who we are, when we let out our superpowers, whether it's through how we talk or our hair color, or a million different things, that I think that actually makes us stronger in business. So having said all of that, did it take courage to have purple hair as the leader of a center and, as a leader in your field?
I'm going to say yes. So I can remember when I worked in the hospital, and there was a mom, and a lot of the teenagers would have, colored hair. And there was a mom that came in and she had like little pink highlights in her hair. And when I saw her in the waiting room, the first thought in my head was like, oh, that looks so cool. And then there were two other workers that were like, oh my God, she's too old to have that. And like just totally talking trash. And I was like, well, I guess I'm checked then. But so I didn't feel like I could do it when I worked there. Although when I worked there, I shaved most of my head and had a mohawk. So I did feel like I could do some things. I just felt like I couldn't color it. And then I opened my own business, started my own practice. And my son actually, he's 10 now and he has long hair and my husband owns hair salons. So this makes this whole process easier. He was like, I think it would be cool to have blue hair. So we're like, all right, you can have blue hair. So he had long blue hair. And then I kind of felt like, well, I want colored hair now. Like, my son was the trend starter in the family. And so it started with like a really pale pink that looked kind of blonde and kind of pink. And then over time, it just got bolder and bolder. And I found, just like what you're saying, is like, I look at myself now and I feel more like myself than I ever did before. So to me, it just feels really comfortable and aligned. But there was that part of me that feared, am I going to lose some credibility because I'm doing this? Are parents going to look at me a certain way and take their teen somewhere else? But what I found happen was actually the opposite, that they see my picture on my website or on Facebook and they say, I watched your videos with my daughter and she connected with you. She loved your hair. And then she was willing to watch because they said, come look at this lady with the purple hair. So it's become a selling point and it's become almost so on brand that like, I don't know if I can change it. It's a claim to fame. I mean, I have some green in there now, but yes, I think it took courage, but it also like so worth it to just, release all expectations and fear of judgment and be who you are.
Yes. Yes. And I also think we have to be willing, in order to really have a presence and a brand and, be leaders, we have to be willing to anti-market. Like we have to be willing to repel some people, not in an offensive way, but just in a way of, oh, not my cup of tea. And when we can do that and feel like that's absolutely fine, then I think we become more appealing to the people who need us.
I agree 100%. I was just having this conversation with another therapist where I was saying, like, I'm not in this to be liked by people. Like, I'm not in this to people please and make friends. I'm in this to change people's lives. And so if there's someone that I know is going to connect with me as I am or feel liberated in who they are, because that's the whole underlying message of my center is you're okay exactly as you are. You are good enough. We can help you get skills to be better, but you are good enough and you belong. And so if me being me can help even one person receive that message, then I feel like I'm doing my job.
Mm-hmm. It's so worth it.
Yeah.
Yes. So, Katie May, if you could time travel to the start of your private practice, what would you tell the Katie May of that time?
Probably some of what we just talked about is that you don't have to please everyone and trust your gut. I think that I know that at the beginning of my time in business, I was a lot more likely to bend to the needs of other people, like clients' schedules, and give them what they wanted, or I don't know, I guess lean more heavily on the customer service side of pleasing parents versus doing what I thought might be right in session out of fear of losing. There's always this balance in working with teams, like the parents need to be somewhat happy because they're paying, and there's a fear that they're going to yank them from treatment if they're not happy. And so you don't want to disrupt that. So I think that what I would tell myself is trust yourself, hone your clinical skills, get support, know that you're always supported and you can do this and it's all good. I don't know. That's my message.
Yes. Yes. And everything that you just said before about being more and more yourself.
Yeah.
Great.
Exactly.
What is the best place for therapists and other folks to find you and throw compliments at you?
Oh, geez. So therapists can find me at becomeagroupguru.com. That's where I talk all about, the whole group process, supporting therapists and getting their groups up and running, because I'm super passionate about groups in general and feeling like, I want to save my little piece of the world and I want to help other therapists do the same. So that's probably the best place to find me, or find me on Facebook.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you so much for your generosity and sharing so much of yourself with us. Really
Thank you for having me. I've loved talking to you and learning about you too.
Thanks for listening. If you want to bring your business to the next level, consider joining me for Superpower Intensive, a 3-day in-person small group program this August in Berkeley, California. It's from Friday, August 24th to Sunday, August 26th. Some really wonderful therapists have already signed up. So learn about it at coachingwithannie.com/intensive. And that's where you'll see way more information about it and where you can apply. Again, that's coachingwithannie.com/intensive. I will see you next week. My son is the editor of my podcast, and he gets so irritated with me when I don't do it right, as he should.